Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Global Education Week webinar on transforming education to contribute to global citizenship and peaceful and inclusive societies. We are happy to have you join us for this meaningful conversation to see how we can transform education to meet some of the challenges we are facing. Today's webinar is organized by several partners who've come together in the framework of a program called the Ethics Education Fellowship Program. So we are excited to welcome all of you. And my name is Suchit Abevikrama. I'm program lead for this fellowship program at Arigato International. So let me warmly welcome all of you on behalf of the partners. If we can have the next slide. Yes, so just some initial guidelines in terms of using the platform. I think many of you are now familiar with Zoom as a platform, but just if you want to rename yourself, you can click that your name, the button, and then use that to rename yourself so that show where you're connecting from as well as your name. That will help us to follow your inputs into the chat. And then if you have any challenges with audio, check your settings and try to use join audio option, use the join audio option to clarify. For this particular webinar, your mic and video is deactivated because we want to avoid interruptions to the speakers. But later on, we will entertain questions on the chat. So please use the chat very actively. For now, we are inviting everybody to introduce yourselves. But then as the speakers start to speak, you can post your questions, comments, and your own reflections actively. So thank you and welcome to all of you. I'm going to hand over to Ms. Virginia Mumo Tekata, who's the National Officer for the Education Program at the UNESCO Regional Office for Eastern Africa. Virginia is going to be the moderator for this webinar. I'm going to invite Virginia. Please, Virginia, welcome.
Thank you very much, Suchit. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, dear participants. We are gathered here today for our webinar with a topic on transforming education to contribute to global citizenship and peaceful and inclusive societies. And beknown to us is around the world, we witness increasing polarization, violence, hate speech, xenophobia, and discrimination. This webinar will help us reflect on the role of education in addressing the current societal issues we face and shed light on concrete recommendations and ideas to transform education. During this webinar, we have the opportunity to reflect on the local and global context and highlight the importance of education that promotes intercultural and interfaith learning, dialogue, ethical reflections, and collective actions by children. Identify opportunities to transform education to contribute to global citizenship and peaceful and inclusive societies. Further, we will share lessons learned from the Ethics Education Fellowship in empowering teachers and learners through integrating ethics education in curricula. The webinar is organized in the framework of the Ethics Education Fellowship program as part of the Global Education Week. The Ethics Education Fellowship is a unique collaborative effort to promote ethics education to contribute to global citizenship and building more inclusive and peaceful societies. This fellowship is spearheaded by Arigato International, together with the Garen Hermes Foundation for Peace, Kaisid International Center for Dialogue Center, the Muslim Council of Elders, the UNESCO New Delhi Cluster Office, and UNESCO Regional Office for Eastern Africa. And to mention, this is in support of ministries of education in the respective countries of Bangladesh, Indonesia, Kenya, Mauritius, Nepal, Seychelles, and the respective UNESCO national commissions. Dear participants, I want to introduce to you our first panelist in this webinar, Professor Abdallah. Professor Abdallah is an emeritus professor and former vice rector at the United Nations Mandated University of Peace. Professor Abdallah is the Becker Institute Scholar in Resident at the Department of Peace and Conflict Studies at Juanita College. His academic and professional careers are multidisciplinary. He has been teaching graduate classes in conflict analysis and resolution, and has conducted training and research and evaluation of conflict resolution and peace-building programs in numerous countries in Africa, Asia, the Middle East, Europe, and the Americas. Additionally, he has been an active figure in promoting interfaith dialogue and effective cross-cultural messages through workshops and community presentations in the United States and beyond. To take us to the first reflection and discussion, Professor Abdallah, we are seeing increasing violence and violent conflicts affecting the world, including increasing forced displacement and growing xenophobia, discrimination, and hate speech. How can education be transformed to address and respond to these challenges in our societies? What role does interreligious and intercultural learning and dialogue play in addressing fear of the other, polarization, and increasing violence? Professor Abdallah, you have the floor.
So much to everyone and to all our colleagues in the UNESCO, Arigato, and all affiliated organizations who made this happen. And thank you so much for the kind introduction. I say good day to everyone from the United States. And I will speak for about 6-7 minutes. And of course, the question that was posed to me is definitely a complex one, and that deserves an entire workshop, and I would say lifelong transformation for everyone who is involved with education at any level. I will share a slide here to highlight, and I just sent a new one, by the way. Let me share, okay? If you don't mind, I will share myself. So if you can take this off, please, and let me do the sharing. I think I have the capacity.
I think,
yes,
Sanjani, if you can remove the sharing, Professor Abdallah.
right, okay.
I think we're fine now. Here we go. Okay. So in terms of thinking of how to address this very important question, addressing violence as we see it today, and the xenophobia and other forms of violent conflict, and how can we transform this violence into something positive and peaceful, while asserting what we think is right and just. I believe that in terms of education, we're going to need to work primarily on a focus on the notion of identity and how to ensure that the understanding of identity from all levels of schooling is connected directly to the notion of peaceful coexistence. It is one thing to be proud of your identity, to assert all the different aspects of what makes you who you are. At the same time, in such a small village world that we are continuing to experience, and we will experience even more thanks to technology, we will have to learn how to live peacefully together. The connection between those two, identity and peaceful coexistence, must be the core of all types of education at all levels. And I believe that in order for us to do this, we need a multi-pronged approach. And I will explain in this chart here the themes or the important areas of focus that must be brought to the fore in different educational settings. And then I will speak in the second slide about some specific structural adjustments to be made. I believe that in the core of understanding issues of identity and how to ensure the peaceful coexistence of uh, groups of people and individuals of multiple identities is to have efficient understanding of conflicts and why they happen, and how to develop peaceful interventions for conflict. I believe that this essential understanding of how to deal with conflict and to analyze it, understand the causes, the dynamics, the escalation, and how to de-escalate it, and how to develop appropriate, relevant, culturally respectful approaches to intervention. All of this is part of what should be a core of education for everyone engaged in the educational experience, whether it is teachers or others, as we're going to speak in a minute. And as a matter of fact, I had the privilege to work with this very group of UNESCO and Arigato and ICBA in Africa on such trainings for teachers and educators in North Africa. And I believe that the effects have been really significant. In addition, I believe that the notion of global citizenship education must be another core area of education for our children, but not only our children, for also all the teaching staff and everyone involved with the educational experience. Global citizenship education has developed efficiently in the last 10, 15 years, thanks to the efforts made by several organizations in the world, especially from Korea and UNESCO, of course. And I think, and Oman, I have to mention. And I believe that we have made big advances. The concept GCED is common now to many people in education. People embrace this notion across different cultures and realize that actually the more we can get people to understand the various dimensions of global citizenship education, we have better chance to improve that focus on identity and peaceful coexistence. Peace education is another important dimension of this. And peace education is, as we know, has a philosophy that connects directly to the next oval shape, which is a transformative pedagogy. Peace education and transformative pedagogy, they go hand in hand in terms of helping not only students, but also the educators themselves to understand that there is another way to understand yourself and to understand how to deal with others around you in a peaceful manner, and at the same time achieve what is equitable to everyone around you. Transformative pedagogy, I am sure that this is such a big challenge for, especially in many parts in the world where we still have the very traditional methods of how we do pedagogy and how we teach in our classrooms. And I find that helping more educators and teachers to embrace transformative pedagogy, to appreciate the benefit that comes from how we can actually communicate the same message to our students in a way that will assert their dignity, will assert their critical thinking, and will ensure that they be engaged in the educational process is important. And again, evidence shows that those who had the opportunity to learn about transformative pedagogy and to move away from the traditional methods of education that is hierarchical and with too much of authoritarian top-down education, have realized the benefits on all different levels. Related to all this is the issue of role of the school administration and school leadership and the community engagement. I think that we cannot put all the burden on the teacher in the classroom. The teacher in the classroom can do only some of this. However, the support coming from the school administration and leadership is a must, whether in terms of funding, in terms of accessibility, in terms of adjusting structures in the school, as simple as to make sure that there is accessibility to people of need, to make sure that the classroom is conducive to the transformative pedagogy and the principles of peace education. All this will require support from the school administration and school leadership as well. As for community engagement, going back to the same notion that a teacher cannot do it alone. We must understand that our students are exposed not only to the classroom and the interactions with their teachers and the classmates. They are also connected to their community. They go back to a home, to a family, to a neighborhood, to different social settings, to a mosque, a church, a synagogue, a worship place, a temple, and the message they receive there, when we go back to the notion of identity and peaceful coexistence, may not necessarily be the kind of message that we are hoping that our young people will be exposed to. As such, education should go beyond simply working in the classroom with the children and the students in the formal sense. Non-formal education and reaching out to the community members in ways that are conducive to them, ways that are appropriate to their own context, not to impose, not to make this a space for culture imposition. And that is a bigger challenge, of course, is to make sure that everything we are talking about here is done in a culturally appropriate manner. I believe that a holistic approach of this nature is going to help us to strengthen peaceful transformation and to prevent and reduce violence, for which the core is questions of identity and how we can coexist together. Related to this is the notion of how can we do all this work? And I believe that as we get into the specifics of those 6 directions of how to achieve the focus on identity and peaceful coexistence, the conflict analysis approaches and intervention must be developed in a way that is context sensitive, and the programs must reflect a strong awareness of the culture, the structure, the societal and international context of where conflicts exist, not to look at a one-time shot or narrow view of certain issues in conflict, but rather to have a contextual approach that allow us to see all the different dimensions. For peace education and global citizenship education, they must be driven by the principles and concept of culture of peace, which again, thanks to UNESCO and other organizations, has developed very well for the last 2 or 3 decades. And with connecting this and making it the foundation for how to develop peace education approaches and GCED, I believe that we will be on the right track. As for transformative pedagogy, I believe that capacity building of teachers, and I must add here also administrators and others involved with education, educators in general, we got to develop this capacity. And again, from experience, from having the privilege of working with many educators worldwide, and in many places where they were used to the old ways of doing things, I see the potential, I see the success of working effectively on capacity building for educators. And then for the whole school approach, this should be the way we think of the school, that the school is not the classroom only, the school is the community, the school is the administration and the leadership of the school system. And that, to have this whole approach for the school is going to help us to make sure that we are implementing what we believe will advance peace in our communities and societies effectively. I will stop here, and I thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Professor Abdallah. We take to point the propositions on enhancing peaceful coexistence in the society, the note on context-specific programs, culture of peace, the capacity building of teachers, and the whole school approach. Dear participants, allow me to introduce our second panelist, Dr. Khadija, who is the current Secretary General of the Indonesian National Commission for UNESCO. Dr. Khadija holds a PhD from the Indonesian Education University in English education and holds a master's degree from the Warwick University. Throughout her career in education, she's developed different expertise, among others, in professional development, curriculum, and educational leadership. Her experience in teacher training includes in some remote areas in Indonesia and overseas. She also has strong networks with international institutions, especially in the field of education. She is affiliated with NGOs, especially in education, culture, and the environment. She has served as the executive chair of the Indonesian National Commission for UNESCO since 2021. And to Dr. Khadija, how can we build capacity in our national education systems to meaningfully equip teachers and learners with the necessary competencies to develop holistically and respond to societal challenges? What are the priorities, gaps, and opportunities? Can you share what has been the experience of Indonesia as part of the Ethics Education Fellowship to address some of these societal issues? Dr. Khadija, the floor is yours.
I'm sorry, I still muted. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes,
Yes,
we can
okay.
hear you.
Good, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you, Professor Abdallah, who gave a very wide, broad perspective on how ethic education should be generated in all nations without border, because we are talking about human life. Now, talking about building capacity in national education system, in building national education system to effectively equip teachers and learners for holistic development and addressing societal challenges is a multifaceted and comprehensive task. It has to involve all stakeholders for education, not just schools and the Ministry of Education. It must begin with the capacity building for teachers, because teachers are the central part of the education. So it doesn't exaggerate to say that the main factor of the successful education is on the teachers. Better and more professional teachers will cause greater potential for educational success, and vice versa. If we fail in developing a teacher's professional, then we plan to fail. The standard of success in education cannot be only seen from the ability of the students in their cognitive, but also accompanied with the cultivation of good character, values that have been developed within them. Teachers serve key facilitators, and their competencies directly influence the students' growth. Continuous professional development programs should encompass not only subject-specific knowledge, but also pedagogical skills, technology integration, and the fostering of socio-emotional learning. Specialized training in critical thinking, problem solving, and cultural competence equips educators to instill these essential skills in the students. Emphasizing the importance of lifelong learning, these programs should adapt to evolving educational needs, ensuring that teachers remain adept at navigating the challenges of the dynamic society. Other than that, the curriculum development and technological integration is crucial for modernizing education, providing digital literacy skills to both teachers and students, open up new avenue for learning, collaboration, and access to information. Online platform and resources can supplement a traditional teaching method, offering diverse perspective and extending educational opportunities beyond the confines of the classroom. This is not only enhance the learning experience, but also prepare students to navigate a technology-driven society, which we cannot avoid at all. By leveraging technology, national education system can bridge gaps, improve access, and equip learners with the digital skill necessarily for success in the 21st century. Here, during the General Conference in UNESCO, during this week, we are talking about ethics on the AI and technology because this will influence the life of the community. Now, talking about priorities, integrating ethics education as an integral part of the Indonesian education system is now use the sixth dimension of Pancasila, the state philosophy, as the center of the character development. This involves developing a well-structured and well-programmed ethic education curriculum at both at the classroom level as well as school levels. Additionally, special attention should be given to the role of teachers as examples and leaders in reinforcing ethic education for students, because we cannot avoid that role model is very important. Students, most of the time, learn indirectly from their role models. And talking about the gaps now, the lack of consistency in implementing ethic education throughout education system is the gap. Moreover, there is a potential disparity between what is taught in school and how ethics is applied in everyday life within the community. That's why I echo what Professor Abdallah said, that education is not limited in the classroom. We, the adults, should perform the ethics along our life in order that they can become, in order that we can become the role model for the younger generation. It's crucial to address these gaps by integrating ethic education into the real world context and actively involving participation from teachers, students, parents, and one which we have to involve most of the time is the community. A significant gap in understanding and involvement among many parents who overly depend on teachers for ethic education. Many parents seem to focus more on the academic outcomes, more on academic achievement of their children, rather than actively participating in their overall development. This gap highlights a lack of attention to the holistic growth and character building aspect of education. And the opportunities, we can see that the opportunities is implementing an ethic education program in school presents many opportunities for the holistic development of the students. Such programs offer a structured platform for character development, cultivating moral and ethical reasoning skills. Overall, ethic education programs in school are instrumental in shaping responsible, empathetic, and ethically conscious individuals who are prepared to navigate the complexities of the world with integrity. Now, looking at the experience of Indonesia in implementing the ethic education program through the training that we had last year together with other 6 countries, Indonesia brought the center of the ethics development in our new education transformation. That is the sixth dimension of Pancasila. And then I'm sure, I think my friend who involved in the project are here in the webinar. Later on, you can also share that the impact of this program is very big. I think we are going to look at it again and see how we can multiply to more teachers. The ethic education program achieving successful conclusion on the training workshop for teachers, which already involved 200 teachers in the training and almost 1,300 teachers impacted from the training. The program equipped teachers with essential skills and knowledge to implement ethic education programs effectively in local educations. And again, because it is integrated into the newly transformed curriculum, then I am sure, I have the confidence that it's going to be sustainable in the next years to come. As trained teachers move forward to implement ethic education programs in the regions, in 5 regions, it has reached estimated 22,300 students in different 5 provinces. And we do hopefully that our teachers who involved in this training will later on can repackage and generate the ideas to other provinces. I think the program will continue to give positive impacts in the future, nurturing global citizenships and preparing students to confront ethical challenges as responsible citizens. We will continue discussing it later. Thank you very much, moderator.
Thank you very much, Dr. Khotija. What a rich experience and sharing and reflection of the work that is going on in Indonesia. And of course, learning from your great experience being a teacher. And to highlight that you closely mentioned the multifaceted approach to a successful ethics education program, and imploring on all of us not to measure the standards of education on only cognitive achievement of learners, but also to look at the inputs for social-emotional learning and building a holistic child. And the need to capacity build our teachers to adapt to the evolving educational needs, bridging the gaps in skills, and more so noting that the children are learning within the school and outside the school environment. Hence, the need to relook at how the teaching of ethics in the classroom is done and how it is practiced in the world outside the classroom. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
will
Virginia.
allow me to introduce the next panelist, Ms. Veronica, who is presently the project officer for global education, the North-South Center of the Council of Europe. Ms. Veronica joined the North-South Center of the Council of Europe in the year 2022 as a project officer for global education. She has had several positions in European institutions and international organizations, including the Transatlantic Business Dialogue, the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, and the Council of Europe. She has done immense work on the as a trainer on conflict resolution and multilateral diplomacy, and was the chair of a management board of an international school in Cape Town. She is also a president of a French association which supports learners in acquiring and developing public speaking skills. Ms. Veronica is a holder of a Master in Arts degree from the College of Europe in European Political and Administrative Studies. And to Ms. Veronica, the Global Week is an excellent opportunity to raise awareness about critical transformations in our education systems that can respond to ethical issues of common concern, particularly as the ones highlighted by Professor Abdallah regarding increasing violence. However, we know that a focus on these essential transformations in education is often sidelined. How do you think we can engage governments and the wider education community in building a case for investment in education that contributes to promote intercultural and interreligious learning and dialogue, thus contributing to building more inclusive and peaceful societies? Over to you, Ms. Veronica.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, first, I'd like to thank Arigato International and all the partners involved for the invitation and for organizing this webinar during the Global Education Week, which the North-South Center organizes each year with its network of national coordinators. And this has been taking place since 2000. So this webinar is one of 700 activities that are organized this week on the theme of Peace for the Planet. And I think the topic we're addressing is really relevant. It's relevant, obviously, because intercultural and interfaith dialogue is essential to peace, but it's also the way it's being addressed in a really global manner with distinguished speakers from all continents. It makes it even more relevant. And I also want to thank the online participants from all over the world for tuning in. It's really heartwarming to see the interest and the engagement on these issues. So thank you for being with us. To answer the question about engaging governments and the education community and convincing them to invest in education and education that promotes intercultural and interfaith dialogue, I'd like to make three points. My first point is that there is really growing recognition that it's important, that education helps to develop peaceful and inclusive societies, as was mentioned by our previous speaker. And really we see from the international community commitments. This goes back to UNESCO's pioneer work already back in 1974. But more recently, there's really a strong commitment with the UN, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. There is a consensus, there's targets, there's indicators that the countries should meet. Targets to include global citizenship education principles, promotion of a culture of peace, promotion of nonviolence in their education curricula. And we see there are examples where it's really happening. Indonesia is really an amazing example in that sense. So there is a strong political engagement, I would say, at the highest level, that this is important. We see it also in Europe. Recently, there was the Dublin Declaration on Global Education that was adopted. There's another strong commitment from many parts of society, not just governments, but also civil society and local authorities that are engaged on this issue. And this is my second point. There's the will, but then the implementation is often very slow, and it's not always happening. And there's resistance to implementing these principles. And so maybe I'll say a few words about that. There's difficulties in seeing often, the capacity building of educators really happening. There's many reasons. Countries have priorities, and these shift, and other issues become more important. There was the COVID pandemic, and suddenly there was a huge education crisis with some children dropping out of school or having problems even learning the basics. So suddenly ethics education was not maybe the most important topic. And then there's a bit of issues, difficulties maybe in in agreeing on the concepts. There's the concept of global citizenship education, there's peace education, ethics education. So many of these different concepts sometimes are complex, sometimes are a little bit abstract, and they're all interlinked, of course, but some institutions champion one concept over the other, and maybe that leads to sometimes maybe teachers are actually already doing global education without really knowing they are, because it's not the same name, or it's what they're just teaching values, and maybe they don't really even realize that they're contributing to what we're trying to achieve. But there's also resistance sometimes, and this was mentioned. I'm repeating what the previous speaker said. You know, that sometimes there's fear to overload the curriculum of the teachers, and the parents and the teachers. They want the children to be taught topics that are easy to assess. You know, prescriptive education is a transfer of knowledge, and you can do knowledge tests. So when you're teaching values and cultural sensitivity or non-discrimination, it's much harder to evaluate, and it makes it harder for teachers to assess. And so there's a bit of resistance there. How do you train teachers to be able to assess learners in that field? And I think it was really interesting to hear the Indonesian example that it is possible to assess these skills. And also at the Council of Europe, we have tools that have been developed for this. There are competences that can be assessed by educators. In Europe, we have a document called the Reference Framework of Competences for Democratic Culture. And this is a tool that can be really adapted to any context by educators, because it's about looking at competences, social skills, and how they're applied. And really, we ourselves at the North-South Centers, we work very much with these different competences, such as, you know, openness, cultural sensitivity, having a human rights approach to things, not trying to find solutions to conflicts. So these are global skills that can be taught and can be assessed if you have the right tools. But yes, going back to the original question that I was asked, yes, it's true. Global education, ethics education is sometimes sidelined. Not always the main topic, although recognized as important. And so how can we build a case for this? How can we approach deciders or the education committee? I'll use a quote from that I heard this week, actually, at another event on global education. I found it very good. The quote, somebody said, it's not about what you should do for global education, it's rather what can global education do for you? And that's, I think, the angle that governments have to take, is, you know, they have to and to understand that global education can really help solve some critical societal problems. I mean, when we look at what is going on in the world, the ongoing conflicts, they affect us all. They affect us all in one way or another. I mean, or another example is the COVID pandemic that affected us all and showed how interconnected we all are. And so our message is really that you need to equip educators to be able to have a dialogue with learners and to reflect on this, to reflect on these issues, and to be able to understand what's going on in the world, and how to progress, and not only understand but move forward. Yes, global education can really make a difference. it shouldn't be on the sidelines. It shouldn't be the side dish. It should be the main dish. Again, I'm quoting here the Portuguese Minister of Education, who is saying, you can include ethics or citizenship education, not just as a topic in itself, but it can be taught throughout all curricular subjects. Everything can be taught with a focus on values, even physics or math, if you want. If you take an approach, every teacher can be really a citizenship education teacher in a way. And maybe I'll close by making 2 points that we think are important from what, the North-South Center has been working for over 30 years on the topic of global education. So we do have experience in this field. And I think one of the points I'd like to make in closing is that it's really important to work in partnership with educators that are outside the formal education system. Because a lot of the education, and again, this was said before, a lot of the education takes place outside the classroom. Religious communities educate, foundations, private schools, sports academies, associations. So all of these organizations constitute what we call non-formal education, and they have really a huge role to play. And I think here civil society is the key element. At the North-South Center, we work very, very closely with civil society organizations. They are incredible in what they do, and so much work is done in the areas of intercultural dialogue, interreligious dialogue, training, capacity building. Actually, I was mentioning the Global Education Week when I started, all these activities that are happening. Most of them are being organized by civil society organizations. And so it's important to have a partnership between governments and civil society to really design coherent programs and achieve this education transformation that we all think is important. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Veronica, for drawing us to reflect on the commitments on the SDGs, especially SDG 4, Target 4.7, on global citizenship education, where we need to really equip learners with skills for peaceful coexistence, let them learn to live together. You've drawn also our attention to recognize the role of education in building peaceful societies as evidenced globally, calling to mind the present day societal issues and conflicts, asking ourselves whether we still want to serve global citizenship education and ethics education as the side dish or as the main meal. So we are all invited that we serve this as part of the main meal and mainstream this in the curricula and in all teaching and learning areas. Thank you very much, Ms. Veronica. You allow me to introduce our next panelist. And our next panelist and speaker is Ms. Erica, who is presently the Director, Strategic Priorities, Ethos and Culture, Ministry of Education in Seychelles. Ms. Erica is a holder of a Master of Arts in Science of Religion and a second Master in Sociology and Anthropology. Ms. Erica is a distinguished scholar, and her academic journey has been one very interesting, delving into the complexity of religious beliefs and rituals across diverse cultures. Building on these foundations and her groundbreaking research work on pluralism in religious education in secondary schools in Seychelles, and also a research in the spirituality of atheists, as students in the secondary school in Athena Royal remains interesting in her current career. As a senior officer in strategic priorities for ethos and cultures in the ministry secretariat, Ms. Erica is dedicated to mentoring the next generation of sociologists and anthropologists. Her passion for interdisciplinary research and her commitment to fostering a deeper understanding of religious and cultural diversity make her an invaluable asset to the Ministry of Education, and I would add to the globe. Ms. Erika has delivered insightful talks on topics ranging from religious pluralism, value-based education, ethics education, to the impact of globalization on religious diversity. To Ms. Erika, how do we work with broader stakeholders in our countries to mainstream ethics education to contribute to address increasing societal challenges affecting children and youth, ranging from violence, discrimination, bullying, hate speech? What has been your experience in Seychelles in the framework of Ethics Education Fellowship, working with education stakeholders, religious communities, educators themselves? What are the challenges and opportunities? You have the floor.
Hello. Thank you for inviting me for this webinar. I want to say a very big thank you for all the partners and all the participants. Thank you so much. It is a very good experience to share what has happened in the little island of Seychelles in the Indian Ocean. How ethics education has impacted in the school and in the society in general. I will start the experiences about the learners. For us in the Seychelles, it was really a good opportunity to embark on this project. At first, we were reluctant because there are so many projects being geared in Seychelles, but we were very happy with the transformative pedagogy. And the teachers were motivated to implement this in 20 schools. What the teachers had gathered, firstly, is that ethics education provoke the beliefs of the learners. It is an open space. Learners are not used to question about their beliefs. There are different preconceived notions that it's been years they have not been deepen their reflection about it. So teachers have told us and experienced that learners are starting slowly but surely to examine their beliefs. They are encouraged to start a little critical reflection about their beliefs. And for us, this is a really good impact. Ethics education also had created a space in school, in the class, without any judgment, to dialogue and open communication. And this is important as learners, they are facing a lot of challenges and they want to have this safe place. And teachers have experienced that this safe space that ethics education have created with the transformative pedagogy had opened various boxes, have opened had helped the learners to even talk about taboos that are not necessarily welcome in their homes. So ethics education had really created this open space for the learners to express their thoughts. Another important, we can say, achievement is that the learners, they are talking about the real world experiences. It is not something very far away from them, but it's their daily routines, their daily challenges, the societal issues that are being brought in the classroom. So when there is this real world talking in the class, this cut and reduce this theoretical knowledge, and it's become more practical for the student. And when it's practical, it's fun. Learners need to see that school is fun. And the Ministry of Education had pleaded to us to ensure that school is fun for the learners. And ethics education had really helped this. For learners, talking about justice, social justice, it's a bit challenging for them. They are a bit reluctant. This ethics education had helped them. Little discrimination within the school, even about among learners, even among teachers. The student had really been able to talk a little bit, start a little reflection. And for us, this is very interesting. So the ethics education in the Seychelles, the very big impact is that it has created a great awareness. Everybody wants to know what is ethics education. We have been able to talk with the Interfaith Council. They've asked for more session. They want to know and to ensure that ethics education won't jeopardize. But after listening to us, we've emphasized about the living together, living in harmony, peaceful cohabitation, respect for every identity. They were more at ease, and they were more they accepted more about this project. The challenges, I can talk about the challenges, is about the integration of ethics education with the loaded curriculum. So there is this question, what we need to prioritize. How can we really motivate the education system to really take ethics education as a very favorable vehicle for the living in harmony in our society? So in the Seychelles, this is a bit challenging, and we have starting working session to see how can we best integrate this. And with the Ministry of Education, we are also we've started also to see with the teacher training, how can ethics education be implemented in the foundation year of the future teachers, to ensure that this program is sustainable. So this is what I want to share in this Seychelles context. We are very motivated to really see the results, what ethics education had done with all the data that we are collected. The teacher training, the Interfaith Council, and the Ministry of Education, they are really motivated to embrace this vehicle to ensure that living in harmony is possible though there are different religion in one class, but living harmony in the classroom, it's possible. This is my sharing. Thank you, Virginia.
Thank you very much, Ms. Erika, and really appreciate pinpointing to us generally on promotion of happy learning, making sure that we have created conducive learning environments for our learners, capacity building our teachers on the transformative pedagogy to enhance the opening of spaces for our learners to feel safe, to dialogue, and to challenge stereotypes, and also to provoke beliefs in their own way of understanding. Thank you very much for these insights. And thank you very much to all other panelists. We'd want to look at the phase 2 of the questions that are coming from the floor from our dear participants. And would want to invite a couple of participants to feel free, please, to raise your hand and maybe voice out your question. With your raised hand, one of our moderators will be able to unmute you and you voice your question. Please feel free to raise your hand if you have a question to our panelists. As we get ready, we have a general question to all our panelists. And it reads, my view is that education should underpin pedagogy and the environment and organization of the school rather than the program. What are your thoughts? It's an open question. Any of the 4 panelists can take it up in a minute or so. Professor Abdallah, you're speaking on mute.
Yes, I just wanted you, if you can repeat the question again that you asked.
Yes, please.
The question reads, is that ethics education should underpin pedagogy and the environment and organization of the school rather than being a program. What are your thoughts?
I'll just start by just giving a general comment that I think was echoed across all the speakers, which is that, yes, definitely the short answer is yes. It's not just a program. It must be something like infused or mainstreamed in all aspects of the educational experience on all levels.
May I add?
Yes, please.
Ethic education should be the central for education program in any sense, because at the end, by looking at ethic education as the ultimate goal of education, then it should be in the center, and then we develop the students' cognitive competence and skills competence, and then go back to the core. That's the ethic education. It should go because that the impact of this ethic education is within the individual, whether they are whether they are in any kind of profession, in any levels, then that should be part of their life. And that's why the core, the middle, whether when we develop curriculum, when we develop teacher development program, this ethic education should be the central.
Thank you, Dr. Khadija. And Veronica, yes?
Yeah, maybe I'll just add a little bit on that. We speak about ethic education. Maybe I'll also add something on intercultural education. It's all very similar, but it's also about it's not only about teaching knowledge about things, you know, concepts that you have to understand. It's also about experiencing the dialogue. I think when we, for example, when we design training seminars at the North-South Center, capacity building seminars, we always try to make sure that there are participants from different parts of the world. At our last training sessions, it was about 50% from what you call the global north, 50% from the global south. So basically people from all over the world. And the most interesting part of the training is not what is being said by the trainer, but it's the reactions from the participants and how they share real life situations, examples of conflicts or situations that they've been in, discrimination, and hearing these experiences from people who have a completely different reality than your reality is the most interesting part. And this is what is going to make the participants grow, probably more than the formal part of the training, which is, you know, learning definitions of or learning about ideas. It's really experiencing the points of view of people who have completely different realities and who see the world differently and who do not have the same references as you because their environment is completely different. And that's the enriching part. So it's really also about having that dialogue, having that experience, understanding what other people's realities are, and that can make such a difference in the way people then approach and understand issues, global issues that affect them and that affect the world. So I think it's also an experience and not just a subject, as we were saying.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I want to add, as long as ethics education is not able to demonstrate that it is an experience, it will remain as an only knowledge. So our effort in the training, in the curriculum, even in the structure of Ministry of Education, we need to prioritize that it's either experience or not ethics education. There are various countries, even in Belgium, they are starting to say, how can we not only ignore totally knowledge, but how can we, this attitude, this learning area attitude is valorized in ethics education. And I think this is very vital for us who's following this program. How can we really demonstrate that this is an experience program, or else it remains in the head and it will lose its essence.
And ethic education is borderless.
True, totally agree that it's borderless and it affects anyone, and anyone needs to, every one of us needs to be ethical. I want to invite our dear participants. I see 3 hands. We'll have Rajiv, then we have Jen and Akim. Over to you, Rajiv.
Thank you. Congratulations to all the panelists. Have been a very beautiful and fruitful intervention so far. my worry is like so far if we keep ethics education, transformative pedagogy limited to one subject, it might lose its essence over time. Just like Miss Veronica said earlier, like how we can a physics teacher, for example, a biology teacher, an accounting teacher, economics teacher, and so on. How can they be trained to bring in ethics education, transformative pedagogy in the normal teaching and learning? Because what I feel is there is a lack of confidence in educators to bring that transformative pedagogy part, ethics education part in the normal teaching. And also, until unless we will not like convince policymakers that ethics education should be at the center for well-being and holistic development of all learners, I think then we won't be able to say that we'll succeed. I don't know. That's my point of view. Thank you.
Jen?
Are you going to collect all the questions?
I hope you can hear me now. My question would be, it's a very great idea to introduce ethics education in school, but shouldn't there be some kind of program or support, maybe online for the parents on ethics education, so that at home they can accompany better their children, and we can work hand in hand to promote nonviolence, social justice, and positive discrimination. I think we could devise some sort of program which could be online where the parents would be able to join in at their convenience, so as to understand the gist of ethics education. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. We take a third question from Akim, and then we let our panelists give their reactions.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. This is Akim from Comoros. I think my challenge, my question joined those ones from these challenges to to integrate the program in the normal education, because in Comoros, of course, we tried also to integrate the ethics education program in the normal curriculum, but yet it's the same problem. They are overloaded in programs, education programs. Some programs they don't even use them officially, so it's a bit hard to make it official also in the normal curriculum education, national one. So now we need to face those challenges. What can we do? Okay, we try to do it partially in communities, and but still we have not yet been able to work with the Ministry of Education to integrate it. This is my first question. The second one, how can we use this ethics education to prevent crisis and to really inculcate a culture of peace for youth and children and so on, apart from using it in the normal education programs? How can we really use it to prevent crisis? I mean, we can target other people apart from the educators or the students, the learners, but we need to make it social. I mean, we need to target other, like politicians, like communities, other targets apart from the schools, to prevent crisis and to inculcate this culture of peace. Thank you.
Thank you, and over to you, our dear panelists.
May I try? May I try, Professor Abdallah? I think for the first question, how can we integrate ethic education in all subjects and not limited to only one subject? Am I correct, moderator? Well, in all my training, I always say all teachers, no matter what they teach, math, science, whatever, that they have to be ethics. They have to bring ethic education in their teaching. Not necessarily in the teaching materials, but in the attitude, in the delivery, in the way they group the student, in the way they choose the language. That's the ethic education for teachers other than ethic subject matter. They have to bring ethic education throughout their activities in the school. For example, when teachers group the students, try to balance, try to put students from different background together in the group. And then this is the most sensitive thing that I find in my career. It's the language that teachers use, the words, the diction that the teachers use. Often, subconsciously, teachers use language that indirectly put students, in different manner. So that's what I think every single teacher should realize, and not necessarily having a program on teaching, on ethic education, and then putting ethic education officially in the curriculum. I'm afraid it gives the potential to focus on the knowledge of ethic education instead of, doing it, practicing it. I would say the impact of ethic education is like herbs or salt in the soup. We cannot see it, but we can taste it. That's the impact of ethic education. We cannot see it directly, but we can taste it. It goes in all aspects. And the last one, asking to how to integrate, how to prevent crisis, etc. That's what I think I can share from our experience in education transformation, that the Ministry of Education formally invite all stakeholders to work together to help the education, to achieve a better quality of education. I think I leave it to other panelists to give more ideas. Thank you.
I would like to add, ethics education need to adopt a whole school approach. The school, the environment, even the cleaners, even the security guards, everybody, they are invited to embark on this journey, so that the ideal school that we are projecting, just as you enter the school, just as the security guard, you will feel it.
Yes.
As the administrative officer, you will feel it. In all the subjects, everybody, the way they are putting the subject, context, sensitivity, the way they are selected learners, the whole school approach, it's the way forward for ethics education. But it's important also that there are some pillar subjects, like I can say, that really lead this subject, with other doing it cross-curricular in the curriculum, like Dr. Soja has said, a way of living instead of within the curriculum. Whole school approach is the way forward. And as in ethics education, there is this pillar, collective action. It's within the collective action that we can experience the different gesture that learners, teachers, security guards are putting into practice when they are facing those problems they are facing. They are doing some ethical reflection. Okay, I will use this path because this is more ethical. This is respect. This is living in harmony. This is the way forward. Whole school approach where everybody embark on the project. This is the way forward, I think.
Thank you very much. And due to time constraints, please allow me to pose one last question to our panelists. And the question goes, in the context of strong religious and cultural identities, and when there is polarization, how can we really help teachers and learners reflect on their identity and learn how to live together and champion peace?
Professor Amma, you're muted, sorry. Professor Amma, you're muted.
Am I still muted? Oh, I think, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
I wanted to just address this question and say that, yes, this is such an important issue, and we face, I think, everywhere in the world. And that goes back to the notion that education is not just about the classroom and the regular students in the classroom. Education here will have to reach to wider audiences, specifically in this case, actually, those who work on issues of religion and those who are traditional or cultural leaders. Many of them are trained in certain ways, especially in the religious context, with a specific notion of how they understand and embrace their religion that sometimes will coincide with a lot of the principles and values that we are espousing here. However, sometimes, sadly, they come with very exclusive values and practices that tend to put their own group above other groups or create animosity and hatred against others. And I think they should be the main target audience for some of the efforts of the transformative pedagogy, the culture of peace, and everything we've been talking about. I think, and again, there is evidence of success working with many of those religious leaders. And I am talking here about the leaders who are working in the communities, who are connected to their people on everyday basis. I believe that reaching to them and to find the proper language to work with them in ways that they can incorporate those values and to appreciate that this is integrated in whatever religious foundation you are coming from. And that this has to be reflected, as mentioned by my colleagues, in everything they do. I will finish by saying that no matter what we do, I like what Professor Chojija from Indonesia said, that it is like the salt in the food. It's like you can feel it, you can taste it, but you cannot measure it. This is the challenge we are facing always, is how to do the impact evaluation, how to actually go to the donors and say, look at the difference we made. And yes, I agree with you. It is very difficult, but you can feel it. And maybe that requires also that we need to be more creative with how we do our own assessments and evaluations, especially at the impact level. Thank you.
Veronica, your reflections on that?
No, just very quickly, because I see there's a lot of questions in the chat, and then one of the questions that was raised about what can we do, what type of activities outside the classroom can we do with communities. I would love to give so many examples, but I can't. The time is too short. I do invite you to go look at the examples of the activities on the webpage of the Global Education Week 2023. It's happening this week, and there's a lot of examples of what different communities are doing. And you may think, okay, because they're listed by country, and you may think, okay, but this is happening in Europe, so it's not really relevant to me. But it is, because a lot of these activities you could do them anywhere and they all serve the same purpose. I do think they are good examples of what you can do. I'll just give one example really quickly. For example, in a school, they did an activity where each child was supposed to represent a country and to discuss the problem of climate change, rising waters. But the children had to represent countries that were not their countries. So they had to represent the Comores or Seychelles or you know, Philippines. And so by doing that, they suddenly become aware of the challenges that these countries face. So they learn about other world's issues and they have to defend their position. And then they have to negotiate solutions and they have to come to agreements. And that's also developing skills of being respectful of other people's position and not trying to just defend your position, but trying to come to an agreement. So you develop skills, you develop empathy for other regions of the world. And then as part of the game, they had to find solutions for their own school about being more environmentally aware. And so they also had to come up with solutions for their own school. And then they had to, you know, present these solutions to their principals. And so all of that is a process where you can, you know, develop many skills that are will help them always be, you know, understand better others people's point of view and try to find common solutions. So this is just one example, but there's so many, and I really encourage you to inspire yourselves on the webpage.
Okay, thank you so very much for the very rich reflections. And I see quite a lot of comments coming from the chat, issues on ethics of AI, issues of the influence of technology, reflections around is ethics education, about mind education, and all this all together. But we also have to remember our key role as an individual in the ethics education and as a collective action together with the learners, the teachers, teacher educators, and the school environment. Maybe just to invite our panelists for one parting shot in half a minute, and then from there we'll go on to the closing session. Thank you. Dr. Khadija, you want to take the floor? Start with the parting shots.
Okay. Ethic education should be the heart of education in the family, education at school, and education in the society, in order that we can have harmony in the society.
Thank you. Ms. Veronica?
I think I'll just add to that it's a lifelong journey. It's about teaching children, but it's also adults, and we should never stop educating ourselves, educating others, all through the life.
Yes. Lifelong learning is key. And Ms. Erika?
I would like to say that no matter what religion, no matter what identity, we all want to live in harmony. And let's put this as our objectives, to live in harmony and peacefully for the betterment of our society. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Professor Abdallah.
I will add to my colleagues that a holistic approach that connects the education to the experience and to make it relevant to everyone's everyday life is how we can definitely advance peace through all those models of education.
Thank you very much, our dear panelists, dear participants. Please allow me to invite Maria Lucia, the Executive Director, Arigato International Geneva, to give the closing remarks. Over to you, Maria Lucia.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you to the panelists for these great interventions, reflections, very enriching conversations. It has been very, very good to hear and to see the connections that have been made, but also the different participants in the chat. So much, I think, is being discussed on the chat. I think it has been very meaningful for everyone. I want to maybe say a few words, particularly on the role of education, the two phases of education. I think we have been talking about the positive role that education plays in creating peaceful and inclusive societies, but we also know that education can also be used to divide societies, that can be used to fragmentize, can be used to segregate, and can be used to foster stereotypes and prejudices about the other. And we have been seeing these in many parts of the world, the bias that are transmitted in the curriculum, in the textbooks, and so on, which has also led to wars and many violent conflicts around the world. So education is not neutral. And I think that's what we are talking about here, that education, like global citizenship education or ethics education for children, is a contribution to an education that is not neutral and cannot be neutral, particularly in a world that faces so many challenges and violence. Ethics education, I think, as most of the panelists and the participants have been saying, is an approach to strengthen the interconnectedness of children, their capacity to connect with one another. It's an approach to develop their critical consciousness about social issues, about injustices. And Erica talked about that, of what is happening in schools when children become more aware. Veronica and Professor Abdallah also talk about the critical thinking that children develop, the capacity of children to embrace the other, to address those injustices, is an approach to foster ethical relationships with others. And it comes to my mind the word Ubuntu, I am because you are, from the Zulu language, which for me transmits very well one of the purposes of education, to help us connect with others and to understand our identities, as Professor Abdallah was saying in the beginning, in relationship with the other. I see in the sense that we hold the lives of others in our lives, and that what we do and do not do have an impact on ourselves, but also in others. That realization for children to understand that they are able to relate to others across diversity, across differences, is a critical aspect. So ethics education is a contribution to global citizenship, is a contribution to learning to live together with people of different cultures and beliefs, and it's an approach for interreligious and intercultural dialogue and learning. I think against the backdrop of what we're seeing today in the world, increasing violence, conflicts, polarization, extremism, and I think it is an important moment to reflect on what is this role of education. We are seeing religious and cultural differences being used to fuel social and civic conflicts in communities as a threat to social cohesion. So in that context, ethics education equips children and young people with competences to address those ethical challenges, to empathize with others. Throughout the work that Arigato International has been doing, we have seen evidence of ethics education programs focused on learning to live together, contributing to reducing prejudice among children against people who are different from them, their culture and beliefs. We have found also increasing children's capacity to deal with conflicts in nonviolent ways. We have seen this in Kenya, where the program has been implemented for many years, and to propose solutions to conflicts or situations affecting them or their communities. These programs contributed significantly to improving children's relationships with others, to decrease conflict levels, and increase cooperation and social coexistence in the classroom. So investing in ethics education, teacher training, in transformative pedagogies, and in the whole school approach, as it has been mentioned here, is an important contribution to promote social cohesion and respect for pluralism. So I just want to say thank you and to the panelists. I think this is a call, and I think in the framework of the Global Week for Education, Peace for the Planet, this is a call to work together. We have the example of 6 countries that have been working with us in Arigato International: Bangladesh, Indonesia, Nepal, Kenya, Seychelles, and Mauritius, and that I think some of the people are with us here on in the webinar, and we have been seeing excellent results. Ministries of Education and national commissions supporting and championing ethics education to contribute to global citizenship and building peaceful and inclusive societies. And we hope it's an inspiration for other countries around the world that we can continue building. I think many were saying, you know, peace education, global citizenship, ethics education. How do we package all these concepts? And I think we are working towards similar goals. And I think the way this is done requires also an effort from ministries of education to think cohesively, but as Dr. Khadija said, that we put ethics and ethics education at the center also of these experiences. So I want to say thank you to all panelists. Thank you to our colleagues and partners for this excellent webinar. And I hope that we can continue this dialogue and we can continue working together. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Hope to see you all again.
Sorry, give me a minute. So we want to invite to take a group picture. So let's maybe turn on the camera so that we can have a group picture from those who are available to turn on their cameras. And in the meantime, I also appreciate Virginia for being the moderator of this webinar. Thank you, Virginia, and thank you very much for all the panelists. Sanjani, if you can have the slides, please. So while everybody gets set up with their cameras, let me quickly give some takeaway messages. We are trying to build this momentum. As we said, it's not enough that we do our part, but we need to build that community of people coming together. So we are launching a campaign building on the Global Week of Education, but going forward, let's transform education together. And this campaign, if we can go to the last slide, we want to invite you to be part of this campaign as well, so that you can contribute to taking this message of and being champions and advocates for ethics education. So if we can please have the last slides. You will find that the webinar recording is there, so you can use that as a way to share this message to other people, maybe post it on your social media channels, etc. You can also make your own post about the key messages from this webinar and get it shared. Then you can also be part of a larger campaign that you will receive campaign materials for in the next few days that you can then share with a wider community, maybe organize a meetup, or actually creates the space for children's voices so that children also share how they see ethics education having an impact on their own lives. So we have some hashtags that you can also use: GEW 2033, ethics education, transforming education. So invite for all of you to be part of this journey together. So with that, we can close the slides, and then I hope everybody has their cameras so that we can take a picture together.